Welcome to the email overview for the version 7 import utility. In this video, we're going to discuss the conversion of your version 7 email configuration, which includes your email connections and server settings. We're not going to be discussing the conversion of groups and contact lists. We do have a dispatcher video available which covers the topic of group schedules and phone book entries in more detail. So check that out if you're looking for that information. What's new with the email notifier? Main thing would be two-way notification. You can send mail out to alert your operators, but you can also reply to those messages to ACK alarms or request alarms or request report. We support SMTP servers to send mail out and POP and IMAP servers to receive mail. We also have support for most of the email to SMS gateways out there. If you're not sure what that is, that allows you to send an email to a cell phone and it delivers it to the cell phone as a text message. In the example there, I'm showing you the Verizon format. So if I send an email to my phone number at vtext.com, I will receive that on my phone and I can then reply to it to acknowledge the alarm or request alarms or request reports, just like I can if it was a standard email connection. We also support SSL and TLS enabled servers. I'm mentioning this because version 7 did not support those servers, and you had to use Stunnel to act as the middleman to handle it. You don't need Stunnel anymore, so you can throw it away. It's all built into Win91 now. A few other things. You can now create fully customizable alarm and report formats. You can have your alarms be sent out in any particular format that you want, and you can use that. You can use HTML or plain text to create those. So once you have the formats created, you can assign them on a connection by connection basis. So if you want some connections to have one particular format and other connections to have a different format, you can do that. In version 7, everyone had to have the same particular format. You can also control a few options on a few other options on a connection by connection basis, like an ACK permission. If you want some users to be able to ACK but not all of them, you can certainly do that. And you can also control which alarms a particular connection can request. So if you need a connection to request all alarms and another connection to have limited access to alarms, then you can do that. A common scenario that we've been seeing is that if you're running Win91 monitoring two different plants and you want there to be some segmentation between the two, you can have these connections limited to this particular SCADA implementation and then these other users are limited to another SCADA implementation. What's going to be converted? Your email server settings and your email connections. So the first thing we're going to go over are the server settings. On the left we have version 7, on the right we have the new Win91. We're going to bring over as much information as we can. I am using Gmail for this example, and I do realize that the server settings as I have them configured would not work with version 7 because I would need Stunnel, because some of you guys know Gmail forces you to use SSL. It is just for demonstration purposes so I can show you guys the mapping between the two pieces of software. First thing we're going to bring over is the server name. So whatever you have entered into your SMTP server name, we're going to bring that over. And then the email address you're using to send mail, we'll bring that in too. The subject source is a little different in the new Win91. Here you're setting it for globally. Everyone will have this particular subject you set in version 7. In the new software, we allow you to set the subject on a connection by connection basis. So some connections may want a different subject, some may want all the same subject. Point is that it's not configured in this global gateway area. It is configured on each connection. Next thing is the port number. So we'll map that over. For SSL or TLS, that's not enabled by default after the configuration, so you'll need to turn that on manually if you are using it. So you just got to check the box and we'll start using it. In version 7, we switch over to the authentication tab. If you have this information typed in, we'll bring it over. But if you don't have it typed in, then obviously we won't. In this example, I've got my POP server typed in and the login information. So I'm bringing in the login information, and for the incoming server, it's disabled by default with the new Win91. So if you want to turn it on, you have to check the box. But when you check it, if you had that information typed into version 7, we are going to bring it over. So if you have it there, great. If you don't, then you'll just need to manually type it into the new Win911. So we'll also bring in the port number there, and you'll also have to turn on SSL here, just like on the outgoing server. So that's it for the server information. That's what we're going to bring over. You may need to revisit this after the conversion if you need to do some editing of these settings. Now we're going to look at the connections. On the left, we have a version 7 phone book entry. On the right, we have the new Win911. First thing we're going to bring over is Tom Jones, the name. You'll notice on the right side we have a :0 after Tom Jones. The 0 represents the index within the phone book entry. You'll notice on the left we've got 2 email entries for Tom Jones. We can't have duplicate names in the new Win911, so we had to put a :0. Feel free to come in and edit the :0, and the other one would be :1 underneath it, and change it to whatever you need. In this example, I'd probably do Tom Jones, and then my other one would be Tom Jones cell phone for the name, because you can see I'm using that vtext address. Once we have the name, we're going to bring over the acknowledge code, or acknowledgement code. I changed tabs on the right side to the ACK options. This is where you control whether a connection can ACK alarms. So we're going to bring the acknowledgement code over, and we're going to set it to ACK with password with that particular number. What that means is when you receive an alarm, you can type that number into the body of the email and then send it, and it will ACK the alarm. If you don't want to bother with typing in a number into the body of the email, you can change this option to ACK on any reply. So when you receive an alarm, you just have to hit the reply button and send it, and it will ACK. So now we're into the actual email connection within version 7. We're going to bring over the email address, and we'll also bring over the schedule. Again, for schedule information, check out the dispatcher video that we've done previously. And that's pretty much it. It's fairly basic conversion. What we'll do now is I'll show you guys a live demo of what it looks like when you do it in real time. Okay, so we're running version 7 in the new Win911 on the same machine. I'm using the configuration file I used to generate the screenshots earlier. So the information here should look familiar to you. In the server settings, I have that Gmail account. Again, this would not work in version 7, but that's okay. And I've got the authentication settings here. If I go to the phone book, I have Tom Jones. I have those 2 email connections under him. And I also have Wayne Smith and the email connection under him. All we need to do is run this import utility, so we'll launch it. It's going to find the files if you're running it on the same box as version 7. If you were running this on a separate machine, you would need to browse for these files. Once you find them, click Next. This is going to give you a summary of what's going to be converted. We had those 3 email connections, so those will be converted, and the email gateway is going to be converted. So it's going to start converting the configurations. This is a pretty small configuration, so it should go pretty quick. If you do have a large configuration as far as tag count, depending on what source you're using, then it may take a little while. Once it's done, we can go over to the new Win911. This is it here. We'll go into Contact, Email, and Gateway. It's going to make me log in because we're using Windows Security to prevent unauthorized access to the UI. So once I log in, I can see the information that was converted. And I'm going to need to edit these settings because I know that I need to enable SSL because Gmail forces you to use that. The rest of my settings should be good. I want to point out that the email account you're using to send and receive mail should be a dedicated account for this purpose. Don't put your personal email account in here. We do empty the inbox. So if you put your personal account in here and it deletes all your mail, this is what this warning is about, just to make you aware of that. Once you have all this set up, you can hit the test button and it's going to contact the server and send a welcome message. On the incoming server tab, it's not turned on by default, but if you did have that information typed into version 7, when you enable it, we'll bring it over. Again, I got to turn on SSL. And I can hit the test button and it should be good. We'll say OK. And I'm going to save it. And those changes take effect immediately. So another change from version 7 is this is runtime all the time. Anytime I hit the save button, it's going to take effect right away. We can take a look at the connections that we have. So we have those three the connections that we have. So we have 3 that were brought over. First one being Tom Jones. You'll see Tom Jones :0. Again, that represents the index from the phone book entry. I would take that out. You can take it out of there, and because this one is an email to text, I would probably do something like Tom Jones cell phone, just so I can tell the difference between the two. Again, anytime I make a change and save it, takes effect immediately. So you can see all the information was converted. I just wanted to point out a few things that we didn't see in the slideshow. Here are the formats that you have available. I can choose the subject. Remember, the subject in version 7 is global for everybody. Here I'm editing one connection and I can choose his options. So the default subject is just going to say Win9 alert. The other option I have is to put the alarm descriptor, which is the description or the name. It depends on the data source that you're using. And then I choose the body of the email that I want. This is the HTML short format. We have a few others to choose from. If you just want text, you can choose text. Same thing with report format. You can choose the format that your reports will be sent in. Here are the ACK options. We default to ACK with password with 911, which is from the version 7 configuration. I don't like that personally. I like to just have it set to ACK on any reply. I think it's easier. Here are the alarm request options. If I want to say this particular connection can only ask for alarms from any alarm that's that's labeled computer room, I can set that here. And the utilizer tab, shows you everywhere it's being used, this particular connection. In version 7, there was no good way to do this. You had to go to group to group to group to see where your connection was being used. Here on the utilizer tab, it shows me everywhere and every tactic that it's in, so I know that it's in each one of these call-out lists. So those are some of the differences between version 7 and the new Win9 If you have any questions, please contact our product support team. And if you have any questions about upgrading from version 7 to the interactive product, please let our sales team know. Thank you for watching the video.